Hi friends, welcome back.
So in the spirit of the holidays, we figured now would be a perfect time to revisit our lighting episodes. So Christmas lights, we're gonna talk about our lights and how we install them.
So to begin the process of installing our lights, we first needed to start the ceiling process. So for that, we installed a series of furring strips on the ceiling with a few rib nuts and self-tapping screws. So there was only so many rib nut holes that we could utilize. That's where the self-tapping screws came in, just to add some additional security, because with the movement and vibrations of driving, we didn't want everything moving around. So that's how we added the furring strips to prep us for the actual ceiling planks.
Right, and then so once we were ready to move on with the ceiling planks, we of course had to sand them, condition them, and then finally stain them. Now we went with a golden oak oil-based stain, which turned out a little bit darker than we were expecting, but we figured it would look great in contrast with all of the white walls and the white cabinets. But also, we also kept in mind the puck lights as well, so we added some puck light holes on one of the planks, so then they'll be ready to be popped in when we were ready to move on with that.
Yeah.
And then once we got all our planks ready to be installed, Patrick had to cut and manually hammer them in the ceiling. Now, we didn't have a nail gun at the time because we had already begun the process of nailing the planks, but we figured we had to keep it all uniform with the same nails, so we kind of had to be stuck.
Yes, as painstakingly difficult as it was, doing it upside down in some places, and it proved to be very difficult getting them in straight. So even though we ended up buying a nail gun after the fact, I think actually midway through I was just done and was like, let's get a nail gun. But then we decided to just continue, like Arthur said, for the continuity of those nails. But it looked really, really great. We started with the center plank, as that's where our main puck lights were going, and then kind of built out from there. Before we finished the ceiling, though, we needed to start wiring the lights. So we'll talk through how we actually wired the lights, and then once that was done, we were able to continue finishing the ceiling up.
So once we were ready to move on with our lights, first we had to learn how to wire them. Now, Patrick and I have no experience wiring any electrical in our life, so we had to do a bunch of research, and we watched a couple videos, a couple hundred videos, and we figured this is pretty easy.
We could figure this out. Yeah.
So we tested it out with our bathroom light, since it is just the one light. And again, that process was pretty simple, straightforward. It was just using some 14 gauge wire that connected into the circuit breaker, into a light switch, and then finally into the light itself. And that was a pretty fun night.
It was very exciting and nerve-wracking. This was one of those projects where no amount of research, it wasn't clicking for me. And I was getting really frustrated because I wasn't understanding the process. Until we actually set out, we put everything out, we started putting it together, and then we were able to work through it, and that's where it started to make sense. Yeah. Great job that we started with the first easy light for the bathroom, just one light on one switch. Mm-hmm. But even with that, we were still very nervous to be working with the electrical system in the van, but we have a very fun video to show. We did capture that moment. So
you might want to lower your volume.
I want to lower your volume, but yes, let's show that reaction now.
Okay.
All right, so we have wired. Can't really see. Maybe you can see. We've wired our first light, our first puck light for the ceiling. This one's going in the bathroom, and we're gonna see if it works. This is our first time ever trying anything like this, so you want to turn back on the system.
Sure.
So we completely shut off everything, all the power, and we're gonna try and see if this works.
Okay. Let's give it a moment.
I might cry if it doesn't work.
All right, so just a quick rundown. Yeah. We have the puck light, then we have a connector, male, female, positive to positive, negative to negative, going into our dimmer. which is right here. So same thing, connected by a male female. You can't really see it, but there's a lot of connections, lots of wires, but ultimately we have a wire from a light to a switch to the fuse box.
And as you can see, we really do need light because this seems to be the time of day we work on the van. So it would be great if this worked.
Okay.
So I'm gonna, why don't you show?
I don't know. I don't know. Did
Why did it scream? Holy
It
shit!
worked.
Oh,
my
look,
God.
look, watch.
Ah! Look at that! So once we were pretty confident that worked, we were ready to move on with the main puck lights of the van. So we figured, again, based on the research that we've done, we figured that it would be best to do this in parallel. Now what that means is that if one of the lights were to go out, we know exactly which one to replace, and it wouldn't affect the other puck lights. So
Definitely would make like repairs much easier. You're not dealing with a whole series of lights being out.
Right.
And so since we were putting 5 additional puck lights on the same switch, we wanted to make sure that with all that wiring, if one of those lights went out, we knew exactly which one we could change. So wiring that was an additional challenge, but we figured out that
same concept, again, wire, a 14 gauge wire into the circuit breaker, into a light switch, but the light switch had one main black and red wire that connected or split into the puck lights. So you can see how we did that in the video.
And again, this is something that can be very difficult to picture if you're just looking at electrical diagrams or lighting setups. There's a lot of great resources out there if that's how you learn, but it can be, you know, pretty difficult to interpret that. So in theory, it's literally just a black and a red that run from the switch all the way through to the last light that you're hooking up. And then each light in that parallel series is spliced off into its own set of black and reds using that little connector piece that we have. So obviously you don't want to put 20 lights. You have to make sure that the wire that you're using can support the load that's pulling through. We figured that 4 to 5 lights is probably the limit, at least for the size wire that we were using. So be sure to crunch the numbers, do the math, and figure out what kind of wire and how many lights you should have. But ultimately, we were excited to now test this. So we have another kind of reaction video for this, and we'll show that now.
Okay, so our puck lights, you can't really see us, but
We're here.
It's for the reveal. Our puck lights are in. We've wired them, all 5. And
5 on one switch.
5 on one switch. And we are hoping this works. You saw the first one was fine, but again, it connects to 4 more puck lights. So hopefully it worked. Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
3. You gotta look.
Oh yeah, okay, I'm not gonna
3,
close my eyes.
2, 1.
Look how lit the van is!
Wow.
Oh my god! It worked! Yay!
Wow. We should let's show.
So once we were finally able to install our ceiling lights, we were really happy that we were able to do it ourselves. But yeah, we're happy with the finished product. And one thing we did make a mistake in, slight mistake, was we didn't keep in mind how the wires are going to go through or around the furring strips, since we did install those already. But luckily we only did about 2 furring strips. When we switched over to lights, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that happens a lot.
One of those things that, you know, we get excited about a project, as many of you might, and get ahead of ourselves, and it's one of those areas that just pause and think a couple steps ahead. So with the wiring, that's probably something you want to do once you know where the lights are relatively going to be placed. You can always add some extra wiring, but that was a cause of concern where we didn't want it to go over the furring strip now and cause the ceiling to bow.
Yeah.
So we actually had to drill through one of the furring strips, and you can kind of see that in one of the videos. But fortunately, we hadn't done the last couple furring strips, so we were able to fix it by then.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where if you get ahead of yourself, you might have to have a workaround pull things down, but fortunately it wasn't that big of an error that delayed us too much. But ultimately, having those lights in was great.
Because now we were able to work at night and in the van, and everything was really lit. So once we were able to get past all of that, we continued on with our ceiling. We continued adding the panels, nailing them in place.
One by one.
One by one. And then finally, we also worked on the van fan frame that goes over it. And that was pretty simple. Just cut it into plate, or cut it into size, the size that we needed. And then we just installed that using some screws that it came with. Again, making sure that, because again, the van fan has wires, so you have to make a little notch for them to go through the framing, and that was pretty simple.
But that helps clean up the ceiling look when you cut around, so it hides maybe some of those
slight
imperfections that you get in cutting those pieces. But ultimately, we are so thrilled with how it turned out. So we can't wait to share the final product with you. So you saw us install 6 of our puck lights, but
we actually have 2 more to install once we have the cabinets and the kitchen set up. Then we're going to add some more puck lights underneath the cabinets, so then they'll keep that area lit.
Which is another great reason to have the dimmer switch, because as you can see with these LED puck lights, it is bright, very bright. So with 8 of them total in this van, we
might not have them all on at the same time,
but on 3 different switches, that helps so that you can decide which lights you have. The one alone in the bathroom seemed to be one that we just wanted on its own switch. And then you can dim or turn on and off some of the other ones without having all 8 lights on full blast. But definitely recommend having a couple different switches so that you're not either full brightness or completely dark. Just excited for being able to use these lights, and I'm happy with how it all turned out. We didn't electrocute ourselves, and we didn't break anything. Too bad. So we look forward to having you join for a future episode, and we really appreciate you joining for this, and thanks for taking a pause for a pit stop with us.
Until next time.
Bye.
Happy Christmas.
Merry Crisis.
Happy Chrysler. Bye.